Alright, now I'm going to solve my equation. Negative x plus 7 equals 0. I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. Minus 7, minus 7. Negative x equals negative 7, so that must mean x equals positive 7. So my two x's, x equals 0 and x equals 7. So now I'm going to plug in my x value to one of the equations. I want you to really think about this. I have two equations. Which one of them looks easier to solve for when you're plugging in your x value? Well, you should have said the smaller one, because now I need to solve for y. So if x equals 0, if x equals 0, I'm going to plug in 0 where x is. So y equals negative 2 times 0 plus 18. Y equals 0 plus 18, which equals 18. So one of my solutions is going to be x equals 0, y equals 18. And then y equals negative 2. Now I'm plugging in 7 where x is, times 7 plus 18. Y equals negative 14 plus 18. So y equals 4. So x equals 7, y equals 4. So this is my answer. That is my solution set. Alright. Chapter 10, Lesson 8, Solve Linear Quadratic Systems. Your objective is to solve linear quadratic systems of equations. So basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be given two equations. And this one's actually going to be relatively easy because both of them are already solved for y. So if y equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 18 and y equals negative 2x plus 18, that means that those two equations are equal to each other. So I'm going to plug in negative 2x plus 18 equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 18. From this equation, you should be able to figure out what x equals, and you should also be able to figure out what y equals whenever we're done plugging in what x equals. So in order to solve for what x equals, I have to have 0 on one side of the equation. So that means I'm going to try to get rid of all the ones on my smaller side of the my equation, which is negative 2x plus 18. So I'm going to go ahead and add plus 2x. And when I do that, I need to add it to my like term, so plus 2x. So this cancels out. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this in the same step because this isn't new for y'all. So I'm going to subtract 18 on this side, minus 18, and I'm going to minus 18 on this side to my like term. So this cancels out. And I'm left with 0 equals negative x squared plus 7x, and then plus 0, because that one cancels out. Sorry, not that one. Just the plus 18 minus 18. So now I need to factor out my greatest common factor, which is all I can factor out is an x. So I have 0 equals. I'm going to factor out a negative x to make it, oh no, that's fine. We can keep it a positive x. I'm going to factor out a positive x, so I'll be left with negative x plus 7. All I did was look at what number I can take out. I mean, what variable, what number, your greatest common factor. So then I'm left with x equals 0, because I take out everything that I have left. I'm going to make it plug into 0. So then I have negative x equal to 0. Negative x plus 7 equals 0. Alright, 3x minus y equals 3, and y equals x squared minus 7x plus 22. What I want you to notice here is that both of your equations don't equal up to y yet. So what do you think you're going to do as your first step? You are going to make it equal up to y. So I'm going to solve for y. 3x minus y equals 3. So I want y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. minus 3x. So this goes away. And I have negative y equals 3 minus 3x. Well, I want that y to be a positive y, so I'm dividing by negative 1. So I divide this side by negative 1. So I'll be left with y equals negative 3 plus 3x. So that's my first step. I solved for my y value on both sides. All I did was manipulate my equation. That is something that you learn in my class, and that's also something that you learn in Mrs. Smith's class. So y equals negative 3 plus 3x. So now I have two equations that equal up to y, so that means I can make them equal up to each other. So I have x squared minus 7x plus 22 equals negative 3 plus 3x. So after I equal them both up to y, I'm doing everything I did on my first example. The only thing different was this time they didn't give me it easy. They didn't tell me that both of them equal up to y. So now I solve for, I make 0 on one side of the equation. I need to have a 0 on one side of the equation. So I'm going to move over the smaller portion. So I'm a negative 3. I'm going to add 3. And I'm going to add 3 to my like term, my whole number. So this cancels out, and then I have a plus 3x. So now I'm going to subtract 3x minus 3x. So this cancels out, and now I'm going to simplify. This will be equal to 0, and I'll have x squared minus 10x plus 25. X squared minus 10x plus 25. Well, now I need to make my t-chart, or if you recognize your first and your last two numbers are both perfect squares. So you could do the square root of your first number, the square root of your first number. This is just a trick. If you don't remember this trick, you can do your t-chart to figure out what x equals. So the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 25 is 5. And because there's a minus sign here, this will be x minus 5 times x minus 5, which will equal 0. So then I can plug it in. X minus 5 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And of course, they're going to equal the same thing. I add 5 to both sides. So x equals 5. And x equals 5. Now all I'm going to simply do is plug in a 5 to my original equation. And how I'm going to do that, I'm going to choose the top one just because it seems a little bit easier. So I'm going to plug in 5 to solve for y. So I have 3 times 5 minus y equals 3. 15 minus y equals 3. And I subtract 15 from both sides. Y equals negative 12. Negative y equals negative 12. I divide by negative 1 on both sides. And so y will equal 12. And because they're both 5, I don't need to work it out twice. I just know that my two answers are going to be 5. X is 5 and y is 12. Alright, so I want you to do this equation. And just remember, the first thing you need to do is solve for y. Tomorrow when you come into class, I will help you. And I will answer any questions that you might have.